It was Christmas Eve, and the streets of the small town of Alderbrook were glowing with twinkling lights. The crisp air carried with it the scent of pine trees and roasted chestnuts, while laughter and music spilled from every decorated home. Families were busy wrapping last-minute gifts, preparing feasts, and gathering around fireplaces. But for Daniel Hayes, Christmas was different. Daniel was a single father, raising his 6-year-old son, Oliver, on his own. 2 years ago, his wife, Clara, had passed away after a sudden illness, and ever since, the holidays had carried a shadow of grief. He tried his best to keep the magic alive for Oliver, hanging stockings, setting up the tree, even baking cookies that never turned out quite right. But in Daniel's heart, there was always an emptiness, a silence that even Christmas carols couldn't fill. That evening, after finishing his shift at the mechanic's shop, Daniel picked up a small box of chocolates and a toy car for Oliver. He couldn't afford much, but he wanted his boy to wake up smiling. As he walked home through the frosty streets, he noticed something unusual near the alley behind the grocery store. A small figure, crouched beside a dumpster, was digging through the trash. At first, he thought it was a stray cat, but when the figure shifted under the pale glow of the streetlight, he froze. It was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with tangled hair falling over her face and a thin coat that looked far too small for the biting cold. Her fingers were red and raw as she rummaged through discarded bags, pulling out pieces of stale bread, bruised fruit, and whatever else she could find. Daniel's heart clenched. It was Christmas Eve, a night meant for joy, warmth, and family, and here was a child, alone, scavenging for scraps in the freezing dark. "Hey," he said softly, stepping closer so as not to startle her. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" The girl stiffened, clutching the stale bread she had found as if it were treasure. Her eyes darted up to him, wide, fearful, and shining with unshed tears. I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice trembled. Daniel crouched down, keeping his distance. "My name's Daniel. I'm not going to hurt you. What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then said, "Lily." "Lily," he repeated gently. "It's freezing out here. Do you have somewhere to go? Parents? A home?" Her silence was answer enough. She shook her head and looked away, hugging the bread tightly against her chest. Daniel felt his throat tighten. His mind raced. How could a child be out here alone on Christmas Eve? Where was her family? Why was no one looking for her? "Listen," he said carefully. "I live just a few blocks away. My son Oliver is about your age. We've got food, and it's warm. Would you like to come with me, just for tonight? You don't have to be alone out here." Lily's eyes filled with suspicion. What if you're lying?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, understanding her fear. "That's fair, but I promise you, I'm not. You can meet my son. You can sit by the fire. And if you want to leave after that, you can. No one should spend Christmas Eve in the cold." For a long moment, Lily said nothing. Then, with a small, hesitant nod, she got up and followed him. When they reached Daniel's modest house, Oliver rushed to greet him. His eyes widened when he saw Lily. "Who's she, Dad?" he asked curiously. "This is Lily," Daniel said. "She's going to spend Christmas Eve with us." Oliver's face lit up. "Really? Yay. Come on, Lily, I'll show you the tree." For the first time, Daniel saw Lily's lips curve into the faintest smile. She followed Oliver inside, and together they stood before the small, slightly crooked Christmas tree, its lights flickering cheerfully. Daniel warmed some soup, made grilled cheese sandwiches, and set them on the table. He watched as Lily ate, her hunger so fierce it nearly broke his heart. When she finally slowed down, she whispered, "Thank you," her eyes glistening. After dinner, Oliver insisted on showing her his toys. They laughed together as they played with cars and blocks, their joy filling the house with a warmth Daniel hadn't felt in a long time. But later that night, when Oliver had fallen asleep by the tree, Daniel found Lily sitting quietly by the window, staring out at the snow. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Lily nodded but said nothing. Daniel sat beside her. "Do you want to tell me what happened? Why you were out there alone?" Her small hands twisted in her lap. Finally, she whispered, "My mom, she died last year. We lived with my stepdad, but he didn't want me. He told me to leave. I tried to stay with a neighbor, but they said they couldn't take care of me. So I've been just finding places to sleep. And food." Daniel's chest ached as he listened. An orphaned little girl, cast out by the only family she had left. He felt anger rise in him. How could anyone abandon her like this? But more than that, he felt an overwhelming sorrow and protectiveness. You don't deserve that, he said firmly. No child does. Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks. I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought, maybe if I just stayed quiet, no one would notice. Daniel's eyes stung. He thought of Clara, of how much she had loved children, how she had always said every child deserved to feel safe and loved. He thought of Oliver, and how easily it could have been him. Lily, he said, his voice thick, you're not a bother. Not to me, not to Oliver. You're welcome here, for as long as you need. I promise you, you'll never have to dig through trash again. Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide, as if she didn't quite believe it. You mean it? Daniel nodded, pulling her into a gentle hug. I mean it. Merry Christmas, Lily. That night, Lily slept on the couch under a warm blanket, while Daniel sat awake by the fire, his thoughts heavy. He knew taking care of her wouldn't be easy. He was already struggling to provide for Oliver. But when he saw her peaceful face as she slept, he knew there was no other choice. The truth that had stunned him earlier, finding her in the trash, was now replaced by a different truth, that sometimes, family isn't about blood, but about love and the choices we make. The next morning, Christmas Day dawned with golden light streaming through the windows. Oliver tore into his small gift, squealing with joy. Then he looked at Lily and handed her the toy car he'd received. It's yours, he said. We can share. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she clutched the toy. For the first time in so long, she felt like she belonged. And for Daniel, watching them laugh together, it was the best Christmas he'd had since Clara had passed. Because now, his little family had grown. In the weeks that followed, Daniel contacted Child Services and explained Lily's situation. With his testimony and the help of a compassionate social worker, he was granted temporary guardianship. Months later, after a long process, Lily officially became part of their family. Christmas after Christmas, the house grew brighter, louder, and more joyful. The pain of the past never fully disappeared, but it was softened by love, laughter, and the unshakable bond they had built. And every year, as the lights twinkled and snow fell softly outside, Daniel would remember that cold Christmas Eve when he found a little girl searching through the trash, and how she gave them all the greatest gift of all: hope, family, and the reminder that miracles can come when you least expect them.